21, the Mortuary Temple of Hatshepsut, and it is comprised of 2 images. This is a statue of her as pharaoh, and this is the mortuary temple that we're really studying. The ruins over here to the left are of prior pharaohs, so they're not a part of our piece, really. The form of this is that we have really these leveled spaces, horizontal spaces. We have vertical columns, and this is really got some perfect symmetry to it. We can divide it in half, and it is really similar on both sides. And then we have these columns. The columns themselves are light, but in between the columns, there's this darkness. And so it's a contrast of dark and light. And this is kind of mimicked up here in the rock that the temple is built out of. And you can see just the light and the dark played off here in the mountain above the temple. So the form here really ties into its environment. We also have form here looking at the statue. Hatshepsut here is holding 2 containers, and she is wearing the articles of a pharaoh, and the kilt, the beard, and the neem, the headgear. And she's kneeling. Excuse me, she's kneeling and her toes are really taking a lot of weight. She's not going to stay there for very long. These statues, there were 6 of them. They would have been placed here on either side of the path up between these 2 ramps. In terms of content, what does this all mean? What she's holding in these pots is called Maat, and it represents order, truth, and justice. And by holding these out, she's holding them out for the god Amun-Re as an offering, and she's kind of saying, I'm ruling my people with order, truth, and justice. This is also, Maat is also found with the goddess Maat, and the goddess Maat wears an ostrich feather in her hair, which we're going to learn more about when we study the Book of the Dead, the Last Judgment of Hunefer. More content. Hatshepsut sent people out on these missions to bring back exotic trees and plants from other locations like Somalia, and she had them planted on either side of her ramps, making this just extremely exotic and lush and beautiful. And then the other thing that she had placed on either side of the walkway here down to the Nile is a whole row of sphinxes. So I didn't have this in the notes, but you'd want to know that this temple is directly across from the temple we just learned about, the temple of Amun-Re. So on an axis straight across the Nile to that temple. So, no surprise, once a year, Hatshepsut, to worship Amun-Re, to pay him respect, would have the statue of Amun-Re removed from the temple of Amun-Re, and she would have it marched across the Nile in a boat and then walked up this processional past the sphinxes, up past her statue, offering the Maat, and then into a sanctuary that's up at the very top of this temple. Okay, let me explain some little context here. Hatshepsut was the daughter of the pharaoh Thutmose I. And like what happened with a lot of these pharaohs, there was intermarriage. At the age of 12, Hatshepsut married her half-brother Thutmose II. And the 2 of them had a daughter, but Thutmose II also had another child, a son, Thutmose III, with another woman, a consort of his. And Thutmose Tutmos II died shortly after his marriage to Hatshepsut. I think they were married like 6 to 8 years, something like that. Forget. And so when he died, Hatshepsut wasn't supposed to take over the throne. Tutmos III was, but Tutmos III was just 2 years old. So Hatshepsut kind of co-ruled with Tutmos III, or she served as a regent. She was kind of overseeing the empire until Tutmos III came of age. Well, she didn't want to give it up. She called herself a pharaoh, and she ruled for 21 years, and she was very prolific with her art. She just had a whole bunch of stuff built with her image, and sometimes she portrayed herself as very male, like this, like Menkaure. And this would have been a statue, like we already said, that is along this processional route, is right here. So very open to people seeing. Then she put these other statues that kind of show her as in a more feminine way in the interior of the temples inside. So function. The mortuary temple of Hatshepsut is a place for her to worship the gods and to show everybody in the kingdom that she worships the gods and that she is godlike, close to them. So she worshipped Amun, as we already said, kind of up here. And then she worshipped Hathor. Here's Hathor, it's the goddess of fertility. And she worshipped Anubis. There's a temple for him right over here, actually. And not only did Hatshepsut worship gods, this is a place for other people, priests and such, to come and worship Hatshepsut after her death. Okay, and then more of just kind of reiterating a little more function here. Hatshepsut's making offerings to the god Amun-Re in her sanctuary. This is kind of a line drawing showing you the sanctuary here. And this is an entrance, or the colonnade with all these statues, entrance into the sanctuary. This is the top level of the mortuary temple. And with her making these offerings to Amun-Re, the whole Maat thing, it just shows that she is the daughter of Amun-Re. She's connected to these gods. So it gives her legitimacy. This is not where she was buried. So the pyramids of Giza are where Khafra, Menkaure, and Khufu were buried, but this is not where Hatshepsut was buried. She was buried actually over this hill in the Valley of the Kings. In 2007, her body, her 50-year-old, her mummified body of her that was mummified, she died when she was in her 50s. They found a tooth that showed it was also this mummy, and she was pretty sickly. But she died of a tooth abscess. You don't want that. Okay, ultimately, more function here is just we've got a huge display of her powerful leadership. And I think, oh, yeah. Another thing, kind of, this is the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, and they have a whole room devoted to Hatshepsut because she created so much of her own art, kind of convincing everybody, kind of propaganda, saying that, yeah, I should be the legitimate ruler here, even though I'm a female. 20 years after her death, 20 years after her death, her stepson, nephew, tried to obliterate all art that related to her. He didn't succeed, obviously, because the Met's got a room of her art. And this obelisk is the tallest obelisk in the ancient world. She had it built, and it was established at the Temple of Amun-Re.